The idea, insight, or secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time to claim your career crown. The podcast where business owners and entrepreneurs share the keys to the kingdom to help you open the vault to your greater success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by an exceptionally wonderful guest, Jannette Anderson. And today we're going to be talking about how we're only better with age, why maturepreneurs are not done by a long shot. Making a meaningful difference and a magnificent living is within your grasp. And if you get a ton of value from this episode, I would love to invite you to subscribe because it costs nothing to subscribe. Jannette, like many of the women she works with, is a not done by your long shot. Hashtag not done by a long shot. She is a business development expert with over 40 years of strategic planning, sales, and marketing experience. And she is still stupidly in love with what she does. Her words, not mine. And Jannette's breadth of experience and depth of expertise help you succeed at whatever stage you are at. She is passionate about working with maturepreneurs to identify, claim, and position their value so they can make a meaningful difference and a magnificent living. Jannette is dedicated to helping experts and business owners get the 4 inches between their ears working so their business can work. Jannette, I am so thrilled to have you here today. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Lynn. I love talking to you. You and I have similar kind of like pitter-patter, let's get at her approach to life.
Absolutely. And I am really, this is such an incredible, sort of spin on, the maturepreneurs. I'd love to hear about what inspired you to get started, Jannette.
Well, ultimately, I think I came out of the womb with a briefcase in hand. I think I was born entrepreneurial. I grew up that way. I grew up very poor, definitely lower middle class. So really had to get resourceful as a young person because I couldn't really rely on my mom. So got entrepreneurial very young. So it's been a passion of mine my entire life. What really shifted my focus, because for the last decade, I've really been focusing on women because I believe that I got this download about 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, about shifting the world from fear to love, one happy and empowered woman at a time. It all sounded great. I got 11 pages in my journal, and then I literally closed the book and said, I don't know, universe, I think you got the wrong person. Pretty sure you need to go talk to like Gloria Steinem or someone. And then resisted because, I'm kind of stubborn. But I finally stepped into it and understood why women, why now, why me. And a lot of that is just that we need to shift business because how we're doing what we're doing is not working. It's not equitable. We need more equity in the world. And so I've been doing that for quite a while. However, in 2020, I was on a marketer's cruise, and I experienced ageism firsthand. I was literally ignored. I was in a networking situation. Someone asked me, what do you do? I was at mid-sentence answering him, and he turned and started talking to someone else. So I thought, well, what a dick. So I excused myself very politely and went on to the next group. And it happened again. Exactly the same thing. And I was like, okay, well, they can't all be dicks. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not showing up. But that's not it. I have blue hair and polka dot glasses and pretty big energy. And nope, I wasn't being a wallflower or anything. That wasn't it. So I started to get curious and looked around, Lynn. And what I noticed was every older person, especially the older women, were overlooked, ignored, and in some cases, absolutely invisible, like literally not seen. And so I started to get really curious and investigate this. And in the process of that, uncovered 2 global trends and 2 global epidemics that are creating what I call a perfect storm of opportunity that everybody's missing. And so that's what I'm really passionate about, is making sure that that doesn't get missed.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there is so much pressure to achieve things when we're young.
Yes.
But why do you believe that we are actually not done by a long shot and still have
Well,
a lot to offer when we're mature?
yeah. So, in addition to the, just the practicality of, we have a tremendous amount of expertise and experience, and in some cases, wisdom. Not getting old is not a guarantee of wisdom, but so we have a lot to offer. But the two, the trends that I was mentioning, one of them is that 65% of Canadians and 50 to 90% of Americans, depending on the geography and the demographic band, cannot afford to retire. That means they must create income in order to survive. Either, right from food and housing insecurity up to they just can't afford their lifestyle, and everything in between. Sorry. And so that's kind of being overlooked by a lot of people. And it's an incredible burden and challenge, because good luck trying to get a job if you're 60 or 72 or 84, or even 58. So they have to go into entrepreneurship, which creates the second global trend that's going on. The biggest cohort of entrepreneurs to ever come into the business world is happening right now, like the biggest ever in history by a magnitude. And it's largely because of all of the boomers and Gen Xers that have to start businesses in order to generate this additional income. And all the people that out of COVID didn't go back to traditional jobs and so forth. So we have more people going into entrepreneurship than ever before, and no one's targeting them. No one's serving them, especially the older ones, which I think is like incredible, because it's a huge, huge market, like just under 1 billion people worldwide. And then the third thing that's kind of conversely a little weird is, yes, there's all this need and challenge when it comes to money. Conversely, boomers are hold the most wealth that any one group has ever held in history. Currently, they control 79.5% of the wealth in the world. And it's transferring to Gen X and millennials. But right now, they hold more wealth than any group ever has in history. And again, when you look at TV commercials, what are they for? Depends, adult diapers, Viagra, life insurance, those little stair elevator thingies, and seniors' homes. What about all the rest of us? Because that's such a small percentage of the population. What about all the rest of us? How about, advertisements for co-working spaces for older people, or business, services, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the third trend. And then the fourth one is the loneliness epidemic. There are 1 in 4 North Americans say that they're lonely. It's taking a huge toll, and of course did through COVID, but it's still persisting. It's still a big mental health challenge. And that tends to be even more so for older people. As we get older, we get more isolated. And the big challenge is, for this demographic, for what I call maturepreneurs, there aren't any communities or events or groups or organizations that exist for us, because, again, not on anyone's radar up till now. So biggest cohort of entrepreneurs ever in history, most amount of wealth in that cohort's hands ever in history, greatest amount of need to produce solutions and to become entrepreneurs successfully, and loneliness that entrepreneurs, older people, and people in general deal with, that they need to find a community and connection and come together. And this is this amazing, I call it the perfect storm of opportunity, that really is changing the face of business. I like to say the face of business is getting a lot more wrinkled, and that's a good thing. And so it's changing the face of business, which I think will ultimately end up changing a lot of things in our economy and our world, but only if this demographic gets some support to be successful in this.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So when you're working with maturepreneurs, how do you do this? Do you have some kind of a process that you've put together?
Yes, absolutely. Well, see, and I think maturepreneurs are, and like I forgot to mention that of the other 35%, the ones, 65% have to work and would probably choose to, even if they didn't have to, many of them. Of that other 35%, a good portion of them want to continue contributing. They want to make a difference. They want to have meaning in their life. And this is probably the first fundamental building block for every entrepreneur, but I think it's particularly important as we reinvent ourselves or write our next chapter. Um, meaning matters. And so at this point in life, a lot of people are redefining who they are. If I am not the CEO, if I am not the, mother who raised the family, if I'm not the this role or that role, who am I now? What is my contribution? When people retire, 1 in 3 really struggle because of that lack of meaning. So the first thing that I really advocate for people is that they do some work to rediscover purpose, meaning, what is significant for you? How do you want to continue to contribute? Because you still have value to contribute. And when they have that, then people, when they have meaning, they live 7 years longer, qualitative, healthy, happier years. Conversely, when we're lonely, it takes 8 years off of our life. It's been likened to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of health impact. So really important to find productive and positive community and have meaning and purpose. So the first thing is that we want them to support them in that. So I have a process that I take people through, but they can find it in a lot of different ways, working with different coaches. There's lots of books about it. There's lots of, programs, so that they are clear on now what. Okay, all this has gone before. Now what? Who do I want to be in the world? So that's one. Then the next step is, are they getting into business? So the getting goings is what I call them. So they're transitioning maybe from a lifetime of employment. So how do you become an entrepreneur? And not everybody, by the way, can be an entrepreneur. It takes a certain degree of insanity, as you know, Lynn, and not everybody should, but it is one of the few avenues open for them. So how can they do that? There's different ways to explore to step into that, whether it's a franchise or working with partners or starting your own consulting. There's so many different options. And whether it's from a side hustle to a full-time, global enterprise, and anything in between is open to them. So it's a lot like training any other entrepreneur. There's just a few other challenges that they have that other entrepreneurs don't, and barriers to entry. So, good luck getting funding or loans or business insurance, that kind of thing. So we have to work around some of these things and work a little harder in some regards. But one of the biggest impediments is actually our own internal ageism. That's the thing that stops most maturepreneurs before they even get going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was just going to ask you about why is being a maturepreneur a challenge? And you've just gone through a whole bunch of these things. But that piece about the mindset, that's always so critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that sort of leads us into, as what holds people back from taking action, making the change that's needed, recognizing they need to make a change that should happen.
Well, there's a lot of limiting beliefs that we have as we get older. There's a lot of systemic ageism, but there's also a lot of internal ageism that we don't even recognize, that has been built into us by society. Our society is very ageist. Like, we are sold from the time we're little that you must have these creams and potions in order to not get a wrinkle, God forbid. I used to, when I was young, honest to God, I used to sit in front of the mirror, Lynn, and I'd squint up my eyes so I would get crow's feet, because I thought the only people that I saw that had that were very happy people. And so I wanted to be a happy person, so I switched up my eyes. So now I'm very effective. I have a lot of wrinkles because a lot of smile lines now. So the first thing is really getting over that own internal ageism. And even just in our language, like, how many times have you said to someone, wow, you look really good for your age?
I've
What does that mean?
actually never said that to anyone.
Okay, good. Good. Yes. Because like, what does that mean? What are they
Yeah.
supposed to look like at that age, whatever that age may be, and so forth? Subtle little things like that 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 really do stop us. So they get stopped by a bunch of things, not knowing what they want. Especially a lot of people, many women, have been putting everyone else at the top of the list. So when it comes to what do I want, you often get that deer in the headlights look on their face of, oh, I don't know. And so they have to start to come back home to identify what does light them up, what do they enjoy, what do they want. Secondly is a belief that they can do it, because in many cases they're stepping into conscious incompetence, and that's hard for any of us at any age or stage, right? To
Yeah.
just to step into that and be willing to take the risks. Third, it is a risk, and especially for that portion of the population that is already stretched thin, that's scary. And so that's a kind of detraction. Many of them are coming from not being entrepreneurs. They have a lifetime of, you grow up, you have a career, you get a family, you have the picket fence, you do this, you do that, then you retire, and then you're happy, and that's it. We've lived with, you retire at 65, you die at 75 for a long time, but that hasn't been true for decades and decades and decades. What's true now is people are living to their 80s, 90s, hundreds, more 100-year-olds on the planet right now than cumulatively in all of history. And so we have to shift our thinking to, I got another 30 to 40 years. What am I going to make this third of my life about?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And what do I want to have? So that's another component. The other part of it is the practicality of, how do I turn what I want and perhaps what I love, my purpose, my passion, into something profitable? How do I monetize that? Which is a challenge for every entrepreneur. But believing it's possible is a little bit more of a stretch, I think, for older people who haven't been doing this for a long time. So a lot of the same challenges that others make when they leap into entrepreneurship, it just we have that record, the grooves in the record are perhaps a little deeper in terms of some of those limiting beliefs, because we've had them longer. So that's one of the biggest impediments.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's ironic because I know that my mother, who's 86 and will be 87 this year, she often makes statements like, "Oh, I'm too old to do that now,"
Yes.
or and it's like, what? I mean, the people your age will climb mountains, they skateboard, but it's a self-limiting mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But all of us do that in certain ways. And I
Yes.
was thinking about that, and I was going like, well, sometimes when I might just say to someone, like I'd say to you, like, come, you, like I did when we started the show, you look fabulous today. There's nothing about age in there, but
Yeah.
sometimes when someone will say, oh, well, thank you, I'm actually, whatever, I'm 65, and I'll go, really? Wow, I would never have guessed that. I would have put you at least 20 years younger. So I guess that's a little bit sort of like a ageism there, when I wasn't even thinking that I was doing it.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky. I had this great uncle and aunt who were just so amazing in their 80s.
Yeah.
And at this young age, I went, I'm going to be like that,
Yes.
and they were doing and being, and they were not done by a long
Yeah.
shot. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
so that brings us into, for everyone who's tuned in and wherever you're at in that spectrum of 20 to 100, what should listeners do next to embrace being not done by a long shot?
Well, a lot of them are the getting goings, and perhaps a bigger percentage are the keeping goings. So these are people like you and I who've been in business probably for a long time, and need to keep going. And perhaps, we get tired, we get weary. This is not an easy process all the time. There's roller coasters. It takes commitment and grit and perseverance to get through some of the challenging times. And so the keeping goings, what they need is to refresh their why, to come back to why this matters to them, whether you call it purpose or mission or your why. why are they doing this? Because often that gets lost in the day-to-day shuffle. And the keeping goings also need to really reassess or reevaluate what's the contribution that fills their cup now, because what filled their cup 10 years ago when they started, or 20 years ago when they started, may not be what they need now to inspire them, to keep them going, to keep them, motivated. So for both parts of that market, I would say find out what your purpose is, recommit to it if you are in that process, or adjust it so that it fits where you're at now, in terms of how you get your cup filled. Really figure out what is the contribution and the difference you want to make. I encourage people to kind of reverse engineer it. Yeah. What do you want to be said about you when you die at 104 or whenever that is? What's the gap between there and where you are now? And then what do you need to do to bridge that gap? And get busy on that. Put that in your calendar. Take steps towards it. Get support. And one of the things that I would say is, and I say this to every entrepreneur, as you know, most entrepreneurs come in from the technician side. They tend to be the people who do the thing, the massage therapist who does the massages, the coach who does the training and the coaching and so forth. They don't learn business. They don't become the operations manager and or they aren't the visionary. You need all three legs of that stool, as Michael Gerber calls it in the E-Myth, to have a successful business. So at any age and stage, but especially older, you do need to learn the skills of business, including and especially sales, which you should be calling Lynn about, and making sure that you can sell and market yourself, that you've got a strategy and a business model that fits for you. And one of the warnings I want to give people, if I can, Lynn, is in this online expertpreneur world industry that we're both part of, and that you may be coming into if you're moving into this field, is there's a lot of experts selling solutions from the top of the mountain that are leveraging strategies that they promise you will help you build your profit plane, make $1 million in a weekend, and away you go.
It's a lie. I want to just say right there.
Yeah, I was going to say take it with a grain of salt, but frankly, just don't take it. What frustrates me is those solutions do work at the top of the mountain when you have team and cash flow and infrastructure in place and a list of 40,000, but they don't work if you're just getting into business. So build a revenue runway first before you try building your profit plane and taking off. And the revenue runway is really just getting a clear foundation of your 3 whys and a what. Why do you do what you do? Why should people pick you? Why do they need what you have? And what are you going to sell that will help them go from where they are to where they want to be? Get super clear on that. It sounds so simple. 90% of the entrepreneurs that I work with who have been in business for quite a while don't have that clear, and that's why they struggle. They haven't learned how to be successful self-promoters in terms of marketing and sales. They haven't gotten over their stories and their BS about that. And so they can't be as effective in serving and making a difference. So get those skills, hire a trainer, hire a coach, get help with that. You will accelerate your results multifold, and don't try and leap up the mountain in one bound.
Yeah.
That's the biggest advice I could give you, I think.
Well, and I absolutely agree. I mean, and also beware of the people who are going to sell you on something very specific that you have to do exactly this, say exactly this. Those are such horrible cookie cutter solutions.
Yeah.
And they often, they don't work, because you need something that's going to fit your authentic style. Show up in polka dot glasses.
Yes.
Wear a cat pin, whatever it is.
Yes.
And so I really encourage you, when you're looking for that, you've got to lean into, as Jannette has just said, your authentic self, and that knowing that. And so, because that's what it feeds your soul. And it just makes you be able to be more joyful, and that attracts people like a moth to a flame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And, at this age and stage, frankly, we don't have time for BS. And so, like, and I was just saying to someone earlier, I am so grateful that I've gotten to a stage in my life where the approval issues that I've had most of my life, where what someone thought of me was, important to me. And it was selective. I wasn't like, didn't have approval issues with everybody, but I certainly did give my power away to some people or some situations. I'm so grateful that that has declined so much. And the, the kind of, I don't know if I can say this without getting you in trouble, but the don't give a shit factor goes up, right? Where it's less important what others think and more important that we are happy with who we are, that we feel like we're in integrity, that we are aligned, because we're done with living other people's stories and other people's expectations. It's time for us to be who we were meant to be so that we can make the difference that we were meant to make.
yeah, absolutely. I concur. So, Jannette, is there anything you wish I had asked you and I have not?
Um, let's see. Well, uh, no, you've asked some really good questions. The only thing that I would add is I think that there is such a wealth of incredible wisdom and experience and expertise that our world will really, really suffer if it just disappears. Like, I don't think people have really thought out the implications of that whole body of expertise exiting stage left, right? And, you know, it's, we, for instance, young people innovate differently. They come with a blank slate. We come with context. We have experience and a way of looking at the bigger picture. Put those two together, and you're going to have far more powerful and effective innovation.
Yes.
Either one missing is a big gap and a big hole. And we need innovative, forward thinking solutions. And we can't eliminate this half of the equation, the contextual understanding, the groundedness of the wisdom that older people bring to the table. So we're valuable, we're needed, and people really need to start changing the narrative of you're 65, you should retire. Says who?
Yeah,
Why?
and that
Why?
was just such really, truly such a short period of time, because if you look before like the 50s, that was people worked to the end,
Yeah.
pretty much. And so this is just this bizarre construct that came about that has no basis in reality. I
Yeah.
mean, my father worked until, and that kept him mentally acute. Like even my mother, she's always doing things that keeps you mentally active, even
Yes.
though I did say she has some things where, oh, I can't do that anymore, I'm too old.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know I concur so much. So Jannette, thank you so much for sharing why we are only better with age, why maturepreneurs are not done by a long shot. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about you and where they can connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I have a network that is really, really designed to support you in getting going or keeping going. You can find out more about that at maturepreneur.world. I also have the first of its kind ever in the world conference coming up in May for those who are refiring, not retiring. There's lots of events on ageism and aging and lots of events on retirement, but there's nothing for the rest of us, the other 80% of us, who are refiring, who are reinventing, who are reigniting. So if that's you, please go to maturepreneur.world and find out that there is a whole world for you of people and connections, and you are not alone in this.
All right. And we'll put all of Jannette's links down below, so she's one click away. And I want to thank all of our listeners who tuned in today. This has been such an informative discussion. It's been amazing. And Jannette, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work that you do to empower entrepreneurs to be the difference that they're meant to be. We can't do that. We can't serve until we sell. And you helping people be more effective in that and in their business in general means more people are serving and being served. So thank you for your contribution too.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.
What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to share the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petitetoqueen.com/checklist. This has been Lynn Whitbeck, host of Claim Your Career Crown. I'll see you next time